All right, good evening. It's Monday night here with the Monday Night Speaker Series for CARES, and I'm here with Dr. Octavious Bishop. And I told Dr. Bishop earlier today we are not going to talk about Texas football tonight. So I want to welcome you here, and I think this tonight is a really exciting talk for me. I'm Russ Norwood. I was one of the actual co-founders of this program, and I really feel strongly that, the whole purpose of CARES is about providing help for the family. And, help means helping people find ways to take care of themselves during times of crisis. And a big part of the purpose of the program had to do with the spread of addiction in families and how it's such a high recurrence rate. And that's really tied to people dealing with stress and anxiety when they're dealing with active addiction in the family, whether that's a spouse or a child or another family member. And so that's why this topic tonight and having Dr. Bishop here with us it was so important for this program. And first of all, Dr. Bishop, I want to welcome you here tonight. And
thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me back. We really appreciate having you here the first time. And I really maybe just wanted to start tonight and talk about, it was really interesting hearing about your journey through being a collegiate athlete and then going to the School of Social Work and landing now as a PhD there and part of your studies and what brought you there. Maybe that's a good backdrop to start with tonight.
Yeah, I'm an only child, so I've always been the one everybody wanted to talk to when something was going on with the girlfriend. So they came into my dorm room, right? Because don't tell people stuff. So I kind of fell into it. I never thought after football that I'd be doing this. I thought I was going to be a coach, probably. But then I started realizing that I also wanted to be married, and I probably wanted to stay married. And so I realized that coaching was may not be the best space for me, but mental health is something that has always intrigued me. It's definitely something that I've had to overcome my entire life, growing up in the circumstances in which I grew up in. So firsthand, I had a pretty clear understanding from my own experience. It wasn't something that was just learned in school. I got some training in school and I had some wonderful mentors. I have to give a lot of credit to people like Rick Reynolds and Leslie Hardy and John Haney out of Crossroads Counseling and Associates. I was thrown into the fire very early in my career, trying to help people with marriage and all type of issues related to sexual deviancy, to all types of addictions very early on. But I had some really, really good mentors and still people to this day that I can reach out to and I send people to. So I've been wrapped with a lot of love and a lot of care, and I've had a lot of really wonderful people to continue to educate me and feed me and support me.
Great. We were talking earlier about addiction, how it doesn't discriminate.
No.
And, you had experiences growing up, and we have a big problem in our own communities today here, and it's something that's super important for us to address this need with the family. And I think it starts with, giving people direction for how to take care of themselves or build boundaries or find a path to protect the family. And so what we'll do tonight is we'll just turn it over to you and let you, share your remarks and your thoughts on the subject. And then in a bit, we'll open it up to Q&A and take some questions from the audience. But why don't we just turn it over to you and let you go?
Absolutely. Once again, I'm so honored to be here with you. This is a topic that's so important about learning to care for yourself, right? I have to self-admit that I'm getting better at that at 50 years old. I'm getting better at being able to take care of myself. I'm learning that if I don't take care of myself, no one's going to be any good, right? There's something I always tell the students in the School of Social Work. I try to use my classes. It's not just a place where they get education, but where they get some training. So I try to bring some real life things in to help them outside of what's going to happen in the classroom. They're bright students. They all know how to pass a test. They know how to write a paper. They know how to make a good grade. But there's a distance between being a good student and a good practitioner, right? And a good professional. And so I try to bring some good stuff in there to them. And this topic is really important because one of the things I tell them is, if you're ever leery about a counselor, a therapist, a pastor, a leader, all you have to do is ask them, who do you go to when you're in trouble? And if they can't tell you, then don't go. Never go to a therapist or a counselor who doesn't have a therapist, a counselor, or mentors. Never. Information, there is no original thought. No thought that you and I could ever think is original. It's already been thought of. It's already been said. And the only reason we're saying it is because somewhere in the way that we think, we process it. Right? I'm as good as those who invested in me. I'm as good as the help I can go to. I'm as good as the friend I can have coffee with to talk about my issues. I'm as good as the friend who's willing to tell me about myself and let me know if I'm being a good husband or not. I'm as good as that, right? You're as good as a woman who's telling you, hey, you need to love that man better. As a matter of fact, don't love him. You need to make sure you like him. Because I don't ask my wife if she loves me anymore. Once love has been established, all I care about is if she likes me. Because if she likes me, she's going to be close to me. All right? Seems like an easy concept, doesn't it? It's not. It's not. It's extremely difficult. And so the only reason I know a lot of these things, and the only reason these things have been fed, because I've had people, God has blessed me to have people who've been willing to invest in me. I'm not up here because I'm some crazy bright person who knows all these wonderful things. No. I have people that I can reach out to and be fed, right? I'm just excited about learning is all I am. I'm just excited about learning. So I read everything or I'll listen to what I need to listen to. I'll go have coffee to what I need to have coffee to. And you know what? That's taking care of myself. That's one of the ways I take care of myself, is that I'm willing to go learn and hear from other people. I love your story. I want to know your story. In our society, we're either being quiet or we're saying too much. No, we're either being silent or we're saying too much. And silence is aggressive. We need to be quiet and allow somebody to feed us. And then we'll be taken care of. I would like to start with Proverbs 16:18, which is essentially is about pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. This may seem kind of like an odd proverb to be giving tonight, but it's not. Just stick with me. Most of our issue is wrapped around our pride, right? Most of it is. It is extremely embarrassing. It is embarrassing. It's shameful. It's guilt-ridden to be working with your family and doing all this stuff you've done for your family and successes you've had. And then you have somebody who addicted, and now you got to answer to all the little whispers and gossips, right? To make you feel like you're nothing, right? Oh, and I wonder what's going on over there, over here. See, it's the way that I said that will bring pride to rise to the forefront, and for us to stand up in a space that we were never meant to stand in for. We were never meant to stand in that place. And so our pride starts to have some characteristics and carries a few little characteristics of narcissism that we can actually fix something, right? We're playing God, but I'm just a measly human and I got my own stuff. We all have something that drives our dopamine. Some people, like me, my dopamine rises when I eat barbecue. So I have to limit the barbecue I eat, right? I got to be careful about how much barbecue I'm eating. That's okay. I'm going to admit that. That's something I need to do, right? But some people need to have it all look so pretty all the time. You know where we live, all right? Everything has to be so perfect. Everything's in order, right? We look so good when we leave the house and then we go home and we cry like a baby. I'm just telling the truth of what it really is, what it really looks like. This is who we are. This is who we are. And so do we know how to care for ourselves? I don't think we're very good at it. I'm not very good at it. So I don't profess at you or speak at you tonight. I speak with you. Because I believe that the passing of information, the passing of wonderful spirit and energy regarding this topic can really, really help us change our lives. We have to learn to take care of ourselves in order to be anything for anybody else. If I don't take care of myself, I'm no good as a husband. I'll go home and start barking at everybody or get silent, which is really easy to do, right? Getting silent for God, that's easy. But when I'm in a good place, I can take a deep breath. I can hear myself breathe, right? I can hear myself breathe. That's how I know if I'm in a good place or not. Breathing is one of the loudest things you could ever do. Most of us never hear ourselves breathe during the day. Never. So if you can't hear yourself breathe, you have to ask yourself, am I taking care of myself? Right? So pride can make you think you can fix them. Right? Control the situation, or that asking for help means you've failed. This pride can lead to burnout, enabling behaviors, and more, and your own destruction. I can't tell you how many people have set out to help other people and ended up in the same space. And we don't talk about it. Amen. We don't talk about that. Mm-hmm. That is something we have to really recognize, that we are not far, the helper, from being in the same space. Whether or not you do the same drug they do, or you do something else, or they become your drug. Now we lost the ability to take care of ourselves. Once we fall into those traps and we haven't separated, now we fall into the trap of addiction. We're just we get in the wheel and we go round and round and around and around we go. It happens all the time. We must be practiced. As an athlete, as a student, as a professor, everything you do, you have to be practiced. Many of you have been successful because you practice what you do. But why won't we practice taking care of ourselves? Why is it not a practice? At times in my life, it's been a chore. I've literally felt like it's a chore because of the guilt I felt.
So maybe you could talk about, for a person dealing with someone in addiction, and they're just trying to cope. Yeah. They're trying to cope with the chaos and the strain on the family. Mm-hmm. Give me an example of, being practiced in that. Mm-hmm. How would you find space, or how would you give an example of somebody finding space to take care of themselves in a situation like that?
Yeah. But first of all, there has to be a level of self-awareness. You can't do anything if you're not aware of what's taking place. I explain anxiety and depression this way. Most people have an issue with sleep. Most people do. Most people don't, in our society, don't sleep very well. They really don't. We talked about that before, mm-hmm. but it's really, it's true. Most people don't sleep well. Some people will go to the extent to say, man, I'm so depressed, I can't sleep. No, you're not. Anxiety precedes depression. I've never counseled anybody or worked with anybody who wasn't anxious before they were depressed. Because when you're depressed, what do you do all the time? You go to sleep. You have no choice. You give in. And so educating ourselves on who we are and that all feeling is a gift is really one of the first places you start. That self-education allows you to understand where's this stress in my body? Where do I feel stress in my body? Some people may feel in their head, some people may feel in their chest, some people in their gut. It makes sense in the gut because the largest markers for serotonin are in the gut, in the brain, right?
Sure.
And so understanding who you are, understanding being self-aware about your body. If you're a person that works out, right? You go 3-4 days without working out, you're not the same person. You probably need to pay attention to that, right? Those things can really, really, run amok on us when we forget to do the things that really help us out.
Okay.
Yeah. Good. So we must be practicing. The first thing I want to talk about is humility, right? The only way to break pride is to become vulnerable. And vulnerability and humility sit side by side. They sit side by side. Is it somewhat of a terrifying space to be? Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it is. But humility can encompass you in a way that other things can't. Because humility allows our hearts to be postured towards those things that are important. Humility will allow us to recognize who we need to call for coffee. Humility will allow us to, maybe if you're a spiritual person and you're a person of faith, I'm a person of faith, to get in the Word more, or to spend more time with God, or to listen to the right music, right? Listen to the right thing, to turn off the news, to turn off the social media. Humility will place you into more of a quiet space so that you can hear yourself think. Humility is a calming space, but it's an extremely strong space. And it's a space that I believe the first space we should go once we get an understanding that, wait a minute, I'm being a tad bit too prideful here. Let's get humble. Let's find it humble. And it'd be even better if you could go to a counselor, a therapist, or you had someone else to check in with you.
So the first step is just walking through the door.
That's it.
Right?
That's right.
Because we talked about this as far as just getting people to come through the door and admit, hey, I need help with this. Yep. Right.
Yep. Yeah. Humility, self-awareness, and then openness. Right. Once we have accepted where we are and we've assessed where we are, the openness piece. There's something really beautiful about the Bible talks about we're changed by the words of our testimony. There's something beautiful about being able to share, where you've come from and where you're going, even when you're in the muck of something. That's why AA is so important. That's really what it's about. We have a hardwiring of the brain. We don't feel with our skin. We feel with the brain. We don't see with our eyes. We see with our brain. We don't smell with our nose. We smell with our brain. Right? We don't hear with our ears. We hear with our brain. But then you have a mind. Right? Your mind is expressed when you share. You can't show me your mind, but you can express your mind and reveal it to me. You can show me your brain all day, and I can tell you what parts of the brain will do what. But your mind, it's unique. We've been made in a very unique way to be able to share our minds and then make decisions on how we're going to share that information. So openness is really the flood of information. Sometimes it's not even what we say. Sometimes it's just a smile. Hey, I feel your presence here, and your presence feels good here, right? Sometimes it's that much. Many times we feel like we have to overdo things, or we need more than what we really need. You never know what eye contact will do for someone, right? Meeting somebody at eye level. I go to the same coffee shop every day, and it's really interesting. I test it every day. People are really uncomfortable with you looking into their eyes, but I do it all the time. My deal is that I'm looking into the eyes of a miracle. Each and every person we see is a miracle, right? You didn't just make it to the egg. You made it inside the egg first. Everybody you see has won the lottery. Everyone you see has won the lottery. And there were millions that didn't. It seems so simple, but it's not, right? It does. And so, openness, it's about communication. Right? Openness, you can say something. Openness can just be a good pat, man. Openness could be a text. I'm thinking about you. Mm-hmm. It means something. When Pastor Dan texts me, sometimes in the morning we text each other back and forth every now and then. He's like, I'm praying for you. I'm like, man, all of a sudden I get a little energy. I'm like, man, I can do this, right? It's just something about it, right? And it's appreciated on both sides. That means something. It really does. When we're thinking about each other, and we're helping each other, that openness can open the door for us to become even more have more self-care for ourselves. And then this one's difficult, understanding codependency, right? Do you understand codependency and what codependency is about? Codependency is tricky, and this is why. Codependency is a drug. It's a drug. And so what happens is, if you do something long enough, the body will adjust and you will get a dopaminergic response from it. Have you met people who are angry all the time and they seem to be like they're happy about being angry? Well, they've been angry so long and so much, and they've never resolved the thing that they just decided to accept the thing, and now the thing becomes a stain on their brain and then it becomes hardwired, and they can only express it with their mind with anger. That's what happens. It's the ABCs of behavior, right? We have a limbic system, which is responsible for our emotional regulation. We have a prefrontal cortex in which we make a decision, what we make a decision from. And in between there, we stamped something on there like anger, animus, contempt, all right? These things, this codependency on the ones who are addicted will change our behavior. We're going to talk about that. Who are we later, about who we are later, and how that actually changes who we are, even our personalities. Here's a few things you probably heard. You've been through it. I've been through it. All right. I feel guilty when I do things for myself. I'm a dad. I feel guilty when I do things for myself sometimes. Right? I really do. And I know my wife does as mommy because they won't leave her alone. You know, I don't really care about crying, so they don't even cry around me. You know, she comes home, she says, "Why is it so quiet here?" And she's like, "I mean, they can come complain if they want. You can complain all day long. I'm not going to do anything. It means nothing to her. They go to mom and they get whatever they need to get, all right? And then they wear her out. Octavius, you hear them? I'm like, yeah, okay, here I come. Right? That's part. That's how codependency starts, right? You feel guilty about what you're doing. The next one is I base my self-worth on whether I can help or fix my loved one, right? You're gonna fix them. I'm gonna tell you something. No person has ever fixed an addict in the history of addiction. You know it and I know it. You might have made them worse, but you didn't fix them. I'll just tell you the truth. As somebody who's been doing it for 20 years, I haven't fixed anybody. No doubt about it. I haven't fixed anybody. People find a way to fix themselves, right? When they really want to fix themselves, we're just supporting them until they get to that space. That's the hard thing to do right there. That's difficult because we understand time. They don't get time. The addicted mind has no idea about time. They don't know they're running out of time. They don't. They have no idea what time is. They're like my kids, right? They don't know what time, what's going on and what time means at all. They've lost all track of that. I have difficulty saying no, even when I'm exhausted, right? Saying no. That's a hard one, particularly when maybe you've been a parent and you've had conversations like I'm having with my kids now, being 13, 10, and 8, and I'm putting in their minds that, hey, I want you to always be able to tell me. If you're somewhere, I'm coming to get you. And right now, I mean that. And many of you had that conversation. And some of you have had to fight with that feeling because you've already made that deal, because you've been in the space I've been in. That's a tough space to be. I don't really have an answer for that space. It's a difficult space. No one, if I can tell, no, you didn't predict that your child would be in that space or your loved one would be in that space. No, that's not what you wanted. You were like me. You were having the same conversations I was. Yeah. Right? So there are some areas that we have to be to take care of yourself. You have to be willing to give yourself some grace on, is what I'm trying to say. You have to give yourself some grace. You have to be relationally equitable with the one who's addicted and what they can actually bring to the table. And you have to learn to be relationally equitable with yourself about the promises and things you made, which is really hard to do because it's really easy to go back into the space of feeling guilty about it. When really, you're not Nostradamus. You're no prophet. You didn't know what was going to happen. So give yourself grace. Grace travels in the shape of a circle. It can only be in the shape of a circle. Grace is only created in a way to come back to you. Give yourself grace. It'll get back to you. I often put aside my own plans to respond to their crisis. Man, is this fatherhood or is this addiction? I'm just kidding. It's all of it, right? That's another difficult space. All right. When do you say no? When you say not? How far do I go? What if the person hurts themselves? There's a lot of things you can a lot of ways you can go with this, but you can't beat yourself up about the decision you made. I can tell you that much. Whatever decision you make, it was the right decision because you've been there. It was the right decision because you've been there. And there are times when there has to be a level of discernment of when to step in and when not to. I feel anxious when I'm not in control of the situation. This is pride. This is pride. This is us needing to get out of the way, right? I was just speaking about even when I have counseled people or been a family pastor, people will come to you forever if they like you. I mean forever. They'll pay all kind of money. They'll just pay forever. I'm going to meet you forever. No. I have a hard, fast rule. There's a certain number of times we're going to meet. I'm not going to just keep taking your money, taking your time. Just because you like me, all right? My goal is that you do better. So right around the three week slot, I say, hey, you got 3 more weeks left. All right, I'm gonna give you everything I got for the next 3 weeks, and you're gonna either go really put to work what we put over we've done the last year of counseling sessions. You really put it to work, or I can refer you to somebody else. You have to know the best thing. If you really love somebody, it's maybe the most important thing I say tonight. You love them enough to let them go.
So I want to go back to codependence.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, to me, I think a lot of this feeds out of codependence, trying to control, losing sleep. What practical steps or tools would you give someone as you think about being in a situation where you've just gotten so codependent on trying to heal the person yourself? Or control the person yourself. What steps would you give someone if they were sitting in your office working through this problem? You're about to send them off for the 3 weeks.
It's all about rhythm and pace.
Okay.
Rhythm and pace. Codependency doesn't have a rhythm. Codependency doesn't have a pace. Codependency has a direct line to get of someone getting what they need in the moment.
Sure.
Either the addict or the caregiver. 2 addicts getting to a point to fix a small problem for minimal time. Rhythm and pace. Rhythm and pace means that you're owning your limbic system, you regulate your own emotion, and you're also regulating your own decisions. You're making the decisions in the situation, the clear mind, right? And it's about rhythm and pace. That means you don't move faster than what you're supposed to move, and sometimes you may not move, right?
Right.
It's about rhythm and pace. If not, there will always be a time that you can jump in. Remember now, if you do a behavior too often, it becomes a dopaminergic response.
Sure.
So now you just checked off something off the checklist, and now you feel a small sense of relief. You become the alcoholic that has to drink just to get the baseline now. Let that sink in. So really, you're just getting the baseline. Oh, I checked that off. Whew, okay, I hope they need to get this together. I hope they don't do this anymore. Like, come again. Every time you check it off, just to soothe yourself. You're just soothing something, and just for a bit. But you're doing it. But it's really for you. It's really for you because you can't sleep. You know, you may get another hour or two because if you check that off now. All right. What deal you want to make? Is it a long-term deal? Is it a short-term deal?
How do you deal with guilt?
Guilt's something else. All right. Guilt is it will. You can feel guilt for a long time. You can't feel shame for too long. Mm-hmm. Shame will balance out, but guilt will take you down. So guilt. Usually guilt comes from, shame does kind of leak into that, right? You find you may be shameful about what happened, maybe what somebody done, what somebody seen. Did I see so-and-so here? Or did I hear this, right? That shame comes up, and then you feel guilty about the situation. Like, what could I have done? What could I have done to do that? The only way to understand it is to gain these principles on being able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to have those lines of communication and those lines of support and those things that you do for yourself that you love to do to make sure you're continuing to like yourself. When you feel guilt, you don't like yourself. You can't feel guilt and like yourself. They can't rest in the same house, right? So you're on the verge of finding a way to really calm that symptom. At some point, all emotion has a run out. That's why this whole issue with me about what's happy, what's not happy. Well, you can only stay happy so long. You can only feel guilty so long, right? You can only feel mad so long, and then all of a sudden indifference comes in, right? And once indifference comes in, you're not going to be indifferent to your child or your loved one because you're going to always love them. Guess who you're going to be indifferent to? Yourself. You become indifferent to yourself. Guilt leads you to being indifferent. And that's a very dangerous space to be. Now that you're indifferent, you're not going to the doctor's appointment. You have this issue, your stomach's haven't been feeling right for a long time, and now it's 2 years, and you haven't taken care of it. Because you don't care about you. You don't care about you anymore. Right? You used to like to get your hair done, you don't get your hair done. All right? Your house is a mess. The things you need to take care of, you can't get it taken care of now because we become indifferent. Now we've gone from anxiety, now you're in the bucket of depression. Depression is the last bucket, right?
So, and you said earlier in our conversation, ultimately that, we talked about the destruction of families, family units. Mm-hmm. But then you made a comment about it also destroys relationships or the ability to have relationships. Mm-hmm. A lot of this is on the front end of this whole discussion around the impact of families in addiction and what really got this program started. But and I guess one area that we didn't really cover there is how would you teach a family to establish boundaries or to think about boundaries? Because that encompasses a lot of these topics. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, boundaries. This is the thing. Boundaries are something that has to be on the forefront of everything, right? But you establish boundaries early on, right? The boundaries you set with a family member early on in your life, right?
Yeah.
Whether you set good ones or you didn't set good ones, they end up showing up later. We all know that. So to establish boundaries, the only way that I know to really deal with boundaries, right, is consistency. There has to be a level of discipline that goes along with setting boundaries. Like, this is not going to happen, right? And I can give you an example. I grew up in a single parent home, just me and my mom. I was not allowed in my mom's room. She worked 2 and 3 jobs. I was not allowed in my mom's room. I remember as a kid, probably an 8, 9-year-old kid, me busting going in her room, and she saw that something was moved in her room. She said, "Son, don't go in my room again." And I mean it, and I mean it. I've never been in my mom's room again. Unless she invites me in her room. There's a boundary. There was a boundary. There was a boundary set, right? In that space. It's just that's just not that's something that those are boundaries you set. A boundary has to be established by you, right? You have to be able to recognize how is this impacting me, right? The boundary is about you. The boundary is not totally about them. It's about you. You're setting boundaries is more of a model. You're modeling how they should be setting boundaries. And so there's going to be a level of accountability and a level of them being uncomfortable, the addict being uncomfortable when you set boundaries. And so boundaries and how they speak to you, I don't care what happens here. You need to come to on how you're going to speak to people in the house, right? I grew up around people in the crack age, and I heard them speaking out in the streets in a certain way. But when they went to certain places in their families, that's not how they acted. That's not how they acted. No matter who we are, there's some things that we don't forget, right? And you need to be stern on those boundaries. That's only helping the addict. Sure.
So we're going to take a few questions in just a few minutes. I think we're going to have a microphone coming around, and I think that I guess I keep wanting to go back to this codependence and the guilt and shame and aspect of in a family when you have, and you made the comment that you've never fixed anybody and you can't fix anybody. What would you say to the person that's really struggling to this right now, has a family member that's active, they've tried everything. They're frustrated, maybe they're angry, and they're feeling that guilt. I mean, how would you help them think through this and really get to a point where they could establish a boundary, get back to sleep, and maybe while we're waiting on some questions in the room, maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, I thought about if I was having coffee with this person, right? I was thinking as if I was having coffee. This is all going on, and like they have, they're just at their wits' end. I believe that interaction, the fact that they're there and self-aware of where they are, is a place to celebrate, right? Unfortunately, it's hard to celebrate pain, but the celebration of the action to lead to something better is sometimes all people have. And unfortunately, rather than go down the muck in it with them, I'm going to uplift that person, right? For coming in and having enough courage to even bring a lot of these issues and things up. Everybody's different. What one feels is subjective. How they're feeling is subjective. Do we know when the tide's going to turn? No, we don't. Time is not a part of addiction, right? Sure. We don't know the time in addiction. So you can't pinpoint exactly what's going to happen, immediately, and when you're going to feel better. The only way I know to feel better is become disciplined about the things they're gonna keep you a sound mind, right? A sound body, a sound mind, and a sound spirit. Sure. And for me, I'm a man of faith. So for me, the push-ups, the squats in the morning, the word, the prayer, and me making sure that I'm surrounding myself with other people who are positive and looking to a better future.
So that really gets back to the community.
It's about the community. That's right.
And that's why it's so important.
That's right. That's why this is
important.
important.
The community, absolutely.
Yeah.
And building the community was an important goal that we had here at CARES. So with that, why don't we get a microphone and we'll send the microphone around the room and take a few questions.
Hi, Dr. Bishop.
Hi.
So there's two things that you mentioned that resonated with me. You led with, there's so many notes here I have. Sorry. You led with, why do you say silence is aggression? That was the first thing, right? And then setting boundaries. Like for me, having that silence to where you can pause and kind of gather your thoughts is really important when you're dealing with, someone who's an addict.
Yeah.
Well, why did you lead with that?
I led with silence because I define silence in the mental space different than I do quiet. Quiet is a space where I'm open to hearing, open to hear. Silence, and I'm not saying that there's a time for silence. There is a time for silence, particularly when it is something that's impacting you in a way that could be detrimental to you. There is a place for silence. Let me make sure I understand that. But it is a boundary that is much more aggressive than quiet. So if I need to play silence toward you, that means what you're doing possibly could be harming me. And so that boundary, those are safe spaces. We do need those. There are times you need that. I just like to use quiet in a way that if I'm talking about self-care, I'm trying to be, for myself, I want to be quiet enough to make sure that I can receive all the care from the community and the help that I can get. Mentors, counselors, groups, all these different things, pastors, or anybody around, I can hear them. To hear the voices I need to hear. Silence is sometimes you do need to shut things out from people who are talking, gossiping, all those different. I get that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's what leads me to my question. When you mentioned that, that's what I figured you meant. Mm-hmm. But when you're dealing with someone who is not reasonable, and you have that silence where you're pausing to respond or not respond, what would you say to someone that that has the addiction to where you don't want them to feel like you're not being empathetic to what they're going through? What would you say during that silence?
Yeah, I wouldn't try to define anything for the addicted mind. I don't believe the addicted mind is the original mind. So if the addicted mind is not the original mind, then I'm gonna speak to my mind. Okay. And so at the end of the day, it's faith anyway that in the space that you're working in, and there's nothing you're gonna say to change. There's nothing I can do to change a sane mind, let alone an addicted mind.
Okay.
So, Dr. Bishop, thank you so much for being here tonight. What a pleasure. Keying off of her comment, dealing with it myself in a other life other than I have now, which is wonderful. I think there's two kinds of people. The addicted person is the addicted person, and the person that's there with them, I feel like is doing one of two things. Either you're a fixer like me, because I fix everything. I know Russ does too. We're fixers. Give me the problem, I'll fix it. I'll make it better. Mm-hmm. And I did 17 years and 3 months of that. And guess what I fixed? Nothing. Then there's the person that doesn't want to hurt the person. Mm-hmm. They're the caregiver, and they don't. What you said about boundaries, I think, is what needs to be put on a billboard on 71. Yeah. You set boundaries, and I'd love for you to comment on this. This is a comment to a comment. Mm-hmm. You set boundaries, and whatever happens, happens. Mm-hmm. Because you said it. I can't fix that person. Mm-hmm. God can if they're willing, but I cannot. Mm-hmm. And I think we struggle so hard, even the overpowering person like me, or the underpowering pleaser, you're doing the same thing. Absolutely. I'd love to hear you expand on that a minute.
Yeah, everything's about balance, right? Where there's no balance, there's no strength. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So there has to be balance in everything you do. If you're a balanced person physically, you're extremely strong, right? That's how we measure, whether or not somebody's fit. That's what that means. Not necessarily what they look like. There are people who have genetic dispositions, but a person who's really strong, they're balanced. You can't really tilt them anywhere. And to be balanced means that you have come to terms with what you feel, but you don't rely on what you feel about what's taking place. You understand, because you're the same mind, you understand that principle has to be at the forefront. So it will always be a battle between passion versus principle, the passion and the love I have for this person versus the principles in which I need to stand on. And we all know which ones work. Feelings are fickle. Feelings are fickle. But I'll say it if you won't say it. You will always love the one who's addicted. But I said something very early that's very important. You're really wanting to like them again. And that's painful. That's really hard to deal with. You want to like them again. Because we want to go to lunch with who we like. We want to go vacation with who we like. We want to ask over and play games with the one we like. Just ask my 13-year-old. It's all about who he likes. Right? That's who we are. Yeah.
On the topic of boundaries, looking for maybe a little comfort or reassurance. So you're in the process of setting up boundaries again. Can you describe some of the things that may happen as a result of you setting up those boundaries, just so people in here can hear, just so I can hear and know that oh, well, that didn't go like I wanted, but maybe it's normal, or maybe this is typical.
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, the people who have dealt with those who are addicted are the toughest people in the world. They've already been through it. There's nothing you haven't been through. So there's nothing you haven't been through. There's not a disappointment you haven't had. So I think a lot of times we sensationalize our feelings, even though we know what the possibilities are. All right? We already know what's possible. It's going to be up to you, and nobody can tell you how long you're going to do it. Right? I'm not gonna, there's no lie. I mean, it's so funny you get on these different shows. You have people come on, they try to tell you and they have a definite this period. No, that's not how it works. No. This is real. It's real life. You don't know if it's going to work. As a matter of fact, so what you do is when it does happen, when it is good, you celebrate it. When it's not, you hold them accountable and you don't celebrate it. You did it? Good. You didn't? You did not. You both win or you both lose. The one who's addicted only can see, man, they don't care. That's not true. That's not true. The one who's addicted actually has a way to escape those feelings. The one who's not addicted goes home and cries. Right? So when you talk, what I'm saying is we feelings will cause us to lose our minds and not truly, really smart, intelligent people to come back to base and understand that balance is important. It is balance when you're able to celebrate, and it is balance when you say, this is not a time for celebration. Because the mind that you know and the mind you want to like again is not being presented. So you reward what needs to be rewarded, and you don't reward things that don't need to be rewarded.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you so much. I have never heard that idea that codependence does not have rhythm or pace.
It does.
But boy, when you said it, I went, and I would love if you could talk a little bit about how one might, that either create the awareness to realize you're out of rhythm and pace and you're just in it, or what you might do to interrupt that so you can reestablish rhythm and pace.
Yeah.
Because you can care with rhythm and pace, right?
Okay. Rhythm and pace of thought actually allows you to create a bridge between what's happening in your hardwiring and the vast understanding of what's happening in your mind, expression of your mind. Rhythm and pace will bring you back to sanity when codependency will have you going in a circle, in a wheel. in the hamster wheel, right? It will have you on that wheel, and now you're dizzy. Now you can't walk in a straight line. Now you have no balance. Yeah, right? So rhythm and pace is so important to everything, because rhythm and pace is really, when we're in our best state, we have a rhythm and a pace to our lives. Discipline is rhythm and pace. Discipline is rhythm and pace, right? If you set out on your checklist and you've done the things you need to do, you got your 50 push-ups, you got your 50 squats. You've done that, right? You jumped your rope 100 times. You've done it with rhythm and pace. Now you're gonna gunk down a big thing of water. Then you're gonna grab your coffee. Now you're gonna read something good. It's a rhythm and pace. Then I gotta speed up because I got kids. Now I gotta speed up, right? Now I gotta speed up. People don't want to get out of bed. I gotta speed up, pace. But then, boom, I get the pace again. Pace again. Took the call from Elizabeth. Boom, what are we gonna eat tonight? What are we gonna do? Then I get in my car, my ride to UT, rhythm and pace. Pace, put on some music, put on music without words. I don't want music with words, right? I want to hear myself think. Rhythm and pace. Then you get thrown off because somebody gets mad, right? And so now you got to get back on track. When you don't have rhythm and pace, you can't get back on track because you have a heartbeat. Your heart can't beat unless it's on a rhythm and pace. And as soon as it gets off on a rhythm and pace, you know it, right? If it's out of whack, you know it, right? Right? It's a rhythm and pace. Everything's about rhythm and pace. Everything.
So that person that you're sending out after 3 weeks, what would you tell them to put in, on their checklist for rhythm and pace for dealing with a situation like we're talking about? I mean, if they had to put, I would imagine it's, put the right things in your mind, educate yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like we're doing here, to ground yourself where you could think clearly and get your rest and get your sleep and have clarity and really just back to the whole self-care. I mean, what would you tell them if you had 3 or 4 things to give them?
Yeah, well, the first thing is if you're going to have rhythm and pace, you have to recognize what's distracting you. You can't have, the only reason, it's only because of distractions that you haven't been able to stay in rhythm and pace. Because to be honest with you, if we were all on an island and have to survive, we would all have rhythm and pace because we would all have responsibilities with these limited people in here. Because I trust you and I have to trust you. First of all, I have to listen to you because you went to West Point, so I'm going to have to listen to you and you're going to help us survive. And so, but because of that, I'm not going to let you down. So I'm going to make sure I stay on it. I have to recognize that. What else? Say the question again.
Well, I think really the things were establishing pace and rhythm for somebody who's dealing with someone active in addiction. And it really just 2 or 3 things. I mean, I think finding a time, so many things you've said tonight have resonated, and I think they've resonated with people here. But if you were just to give those 2 or 3 tips, what would they be? Because I hear a lot about preparation, and I wrote down, where there's no balance, there is no strength. That could be the theme of this entire program, because really it's about establishing balance again, right?
Well, if I was going, that's a very good question. If I was going to do three things, first of all, it can sound, if somebody was an addict and they were listening, they'd be going, man, he don't care about us. That's not true. That's not true. What I would say is you should be consistent with all the things I talked about for yourself. And after you do that, if you're dealing with somebody with addiction, after you've taken care of yourself, the next thing you should do is to check on the one that you love and the one that you want to see get better, right? It's a check in with yourself and make sure you're on rhythm and pace. And then you check in, and then you check in with that person. That way they know, and you know, that you're still there. You're still there for them. You're still there for them. After that, you got to get back on rhythm and pace.
Right.
Right? It's rhythm and pace you, and it's check them, and then it's back on rhythm and pace for you.
Sure.
That's gonna sustain you and help you be there for them. Unfortunately, remember now, behavior, even if it's good, whether it's good or bad, it gives us a dopaminergic response after a while, and we get a little hit from that, And so a lot of times what you'll find is somebody who's dealing with somebody who's addicted, they deal with somebody addicted, they go to the dog shelter and get a dog with 2 legs. Right? They go adding all these different things on. Right? They go adding all these. You know why? Because dopamine is very addictive. It's a motivator. You've been motivated to care for somebody. So I'm still motivated to take care of. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm just going to keep taking care of, because I keep getting that hit. No. Rhythm and pace. Check on who you dig up, and then get back on rhythm and pace.
So we got time for a couple more questions. Anybody else? We got a couple of hands up.
Reiterate everybody's thanks for the discussion today. I feel like I just got a lecture from a flight attendant who said, put your mask on first before you take care of others. Right? It's funny, but it's kind of, I'm getting that feeling of breathe oxygen before you try and address, you've got to do that. And I also kind of, so I've got 2 thoughts. This silence thing, right? I go to that. It's almost like a passive aggressive is what it sort of feels like, right? Is that a correct? You've sort of, some people go silent, and they do that at the dinner table because they're punishing the other person.
Yes.
And so it feels something. And I also think about us, right? So we're here because we're focused on the caregiver, right? So the caregiver is the individual that we're, and I love some of the, and you're right? A caregiver, there's a series of events that occur that give them that dopamine. And if they're not, they're the ones that you want on a project with you because they're going to keep taking on and taking on and taking on and keep doing things. The point that I'm getting to here is as caregivers ourselves, right? So we have all of these discussions about the implications of the addiction, right? The addiction is the statistics are surreal, right? On how many people, 3 and 4, 7 out of 8, and you kind of go to these statistics. But the thing about that is that you don't ever hear about it, and people never check on whenever a family goes into that situation, whenever an individual goes into that situation, everybody who was their friend kind of goes dark, right? They really, for a couple of reasons. To me, what I've just heard is it should be incumbent upon those of us to help make part of that rhythm, part of that pace, checking in on them, to your point, just sending a text, just sending thinking about your message, those kinds of things. Not every morning, if every morning is your thing, morning, afternoon, and evening, knock yourself out. If it's once a week, I'm assuming on the receiving side of it, helping them establish that pace is just as important. They're not going to, I would be curious, do you think they can establish that pace themselves, that process themselves? Is this something that's just natural for people, or is it a thought process?
I don't think so. I think we all have different rhythms, right? But most times I think we're out of rhythm, right? And so to get into rhythm is going to cause is a level of accountability that comes along with getting in rhythm, because you got to keep on beat. And so if you're gonna do it, a level of discipline happens, right? That's, and I want to say this. I think this is so important. The most powerful minds I've ever known are minds that got over addiction. I need to say that, because they didn't get out of addiction without rhythm and pace. Trust me, they didn't. As a matter of fact, there had to be something there that was placed in them, that those of you who are dealing, you placed something in them that allowed them to find their way out of that there too. There was enough support. That's a good place to end, and there was enough support, and you're providing enough support and hope for them to have rhythm and pace for their own lives, right? And not to be dependent on something to continue to change their minds and take them out of the reality of what this life is really about. And so it's I just felt like I really needed to say that as it relates to the addicted mind. But, you know, how do we keep that pace is what you're asking? What do you?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think I actually asked a question. I
Okay.
sort of reiterated some of the things that you were throwing out
I
there.
was trying to figure your question.
Yeah, no, it's, but, no, I think that what you've just said, right, and I go back to, and I'm going to, one more thought, and that is the end of setting boundaries, right? And so I just finished listening to a book about boundaries, right? And it's one that's been over several. And it is amazing. So I feel like I established boundaries. I listened to this book and realized I have no boundaries. But I think the establishment of the boundaries thing, to me, it feels like it's, and so the question is, it feels like it's not only setting boundaries for me, not for the addicted mind, right? We've talked about the hijacked mind. We've talked about all the different, we think there's rationality going on, but between those two ears, there's none, right, at that point in time. And to your point, until they can come out of it, it doesn't go. But they have maybe that point that you're talking about that you planted in their mind is the demonstration of the boundaries. So you've shown them what it's like to live with boundaries and protecting yourself, and they in turn, if they can start to see that and pattern after you, those boundary components, I think that's what a wonderful message that could be.
Yep.
Absolutely impossible to achieve, but a wonderful aspiration, I would think. But anyway, I don't think I've asked a question one, but I've had a good time talking to you.
All right, we had two more hands up. I know there was one all the way in the back and one up front. So. Front.
I'm next. Check. I'm, first of all, first time here, and I appreciated this. I thought it was going to be from a different direction today. This has all been about people supporting people with addiction, and I get that point. But I'm really glad for the last comments that you made, because you talked about maybe somebody who's in that third bucket. And I disagree with some of these points, as it relates to, there's a lot of people in that third bucket that are rational, that want to get out of it, that are working with people, and people are pulling them out, which is fantastic, right? And now I'm forgetting my question, a little emotional on this thing, but I really appreciated when you were talking about, part of the rhythm and pace and stuff, and that getting people back on track. And actually, Chad and I discussed that in the parking lot a little bit earlier today. But what would you say, you talk about boundaries, and you talk about all these lines, and you talk about this, but people are trying to make progress. And I'm not trying to be, I'm not a liberal. I'm not trying to give people a million chances, but what would you say about, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not.
No.
It's a work in progress. And the other part of it is people sometimes are faced with just a mountain of things that just
Absolutely.
happen. And then the result is, you're right about this, is you go to a way to, kill that pain. The other thing, when I heard you talking about silence, I'm just looking for commentary after this. When I heard you talking about silence, I think about how men, in particular, we eat it for as long as we possibly can.
You can't.
And then sometimes you're broken down.
Yeah.
And then you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. I just wanted some commentary. I thought the meeting was going to go a different. I came here for a kind of a, I didn't know it was about supporting the people who support the addicted. So,
Well, thank you for coming.
thank you for having me.
Glad you're here. Yep. I would, it is a support group about, with families who are dealing with people who are addicted. And there's a level of appreciation for somebody in the room who maybe think about it on the other side. Addiction is difficult. I don't believe anybody set out to be in the grips of addiction.
No, nobody wants to be addicted.
Nobody wants to be in that space. But there is something to say about who one, the aspirations one had before the addiction, and their hopes and dreams of who they were, versus where the addicted mind is. And so if I'm in that space and we have individuals supporting that space, the caregivers, you would hope would be have a more clear thought and still remember that the hopes and aspirations of the one who's addicted, who don't want to be where they are, and trying to do everything they can to pull themselves out of it. In order to do that, there has to be rhythm and balance established. There's rhythm and pace and balance that has to be established. And if one is addicted, the mind is out of balance. It's not where it was when all those hopes and dreams were. The goal is to make sure that if we're going to support you, that someone is not, that we don't forget what those hopes and dreams were. And not only that, because those hopes and dreams are so important, that it's important for us to make sure that we continue to view and take a look at all those hopes and dreams and all the talents, all the gifts this person was, in hopes that we can find rhythm and pace so that we can get back to balance. They can get back to balance. So it's a trust thing, right? It's a trust thing. While someone is in the grips of addiction, that's a difficult space. And it's not something that's going to feel good at all.
I'll just add that there's people in different spaces, right,
Sure.
of addiction, right? There's functional, taking care of business, getting it done. And then I feel like a lot of this was, about people that, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just looking for, and then there's people who maybe are deep down, like a rabbit hole. I mean, a rabbit hole is relative, right? But there's probably a large percentage of people who struggle with addiction that are getting up every morning,
Absolutely.
taking care of their family, but could do a way better job, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt. And, I just wanted to state that because, I hope everybody who's here recognizes that people in addiction don't, and again, there's different levels, but they don't want to be there. And most are desperately trying to, find something to hang on to. That's all I'm saying.
Brother, I believe most people who have who particularly in this room, in this program, they understand they're probably more than the person who's addicted. That person that want to be there. It's very evident. It's very evident in what they are, who they saw this person to be, the gifts, the talents, and the callings they had. They already know that there's no way that this person would be in this, but that's why they're still there. That's why they're still there. And so it's a two-way, street. You're gonna need help to get out of it, and those who care are gonna need help to help.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Bishop, thank you so much for being here tonight and giving us perspective. I think there was a lot to take home and to think about, and the perspectives in the room, regardless of which side of this you're on, is actually very valuable. There's people in the room that have over 20 years of sobriety and have celebrated that, and they feel as strongly about this program because of their perspective on it. And it's what makes this program so valuable. And I think the community aspect we can always build on as well to help hold people accountable.
That's right.
Right? And my favorite quote, without balance, there is not strength. And that's really true. But I think to establish balance, you need people around you to help give you perspective. So these were big shoes to fill tonight with Renee gone. And I appreciate everybody being here. We had a long session, lots of great questions, and Renee always closes by saying, first of all, we're here every Monday night, and we appreciate the attendance in the room. We also appreciate the attendance online. We actually had, 3 weeks ago, we had over 450 views of our speaker it's since then in the last 3 weeks. So if you don't think we're not reaching some people here, we are reaching some people and that are finding their way to CARES and the program. And Renee always closes by saying, if this is your first time here, pause, welcome home. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and encourage you to come back, bring your friends, and help us build the community of CARES. We're really doing some good work here. We really appreciate Dr. Bishop, you being here and being part of this program. So
Thank you.
Thank you.